Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The CINIKRADIO podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cinik Radio podcast. Here your host, Cinik.
Hey, the facts are Spider-Man belongs in the MCU. Sony was delusional thinking they didn't need Marvel, and now he's back. And we, the fans, are 100% proudly responsible for that.
Igrihe.
As long as DC wants to make dark and gritty movies, they're going to lag behind Marvel in every category.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
IG, did we just forget Kim?
You guys completely suck.
This is the greatest show of all time.
You are listening to episode 143 of the Cinik Radio podcast, and I'm your host, Cinik. And joining me, as always, two men who are personally responsible for picking out this year's Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, Igrihe and Ryan. And on this week's show, we are excited to discuss Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, entitled The Jedi. The rumors of Ahsoka coming stretch all the way back to the whispers of this show being called The Mandalorian starting. When the masses found out that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were running it, the fandom was sure that we were going to get a heavy Clone Wars and Rebels tie. Then, shortly after the first season, which was amazing, Rosario Dawson threw her hat in the ring, wanting to play the adored character. Ryan, were you one of those people who couldn't wait for her arrival? And for the newer people playing at home, why is she so important in Star Wars lore?
All right, so yeah, to answer your first question, I absolutely, like when I saw a picture, at some point there was somebody had posted a picture, like it was an artist rendering of her as Ahsoka, and I just thought she looks the part. Like she looks exactly like what you would think Ahsoka would look like as an older version of the character. So I think she's a great actress. I like her politics. I just like the person and the actress and thought she would look great as Ahsoka. So I was all in like as soon as I saw it. And I know that there are a lot of people who would hope that Ashley Eckstein, who was a voice actress for the time, would get the part. And I would have been fine either way. But I think she did a phenomenal job, and I was in from the beginning. Ahsoka's one of the most, if not the most popular non-movie character. She's kind of started off, she was in the Clone Wars. She kind of basically is Anakin's apprentice, or effectively is Anakin's apprentice. And I think the great thing about the show with her is initially I think she was not an adored character, but through the course of the show, which I think the Clone Wars as a show develops over time, and her character develops into really a great character that's got a lot of depth. And so we see her grow as a character, and I think it was really, really important for that show. And she's an integral part of the show. I think it was really exciting that we'd get a live action depiction, because we've seen so much of her and so much of her development that I think it was a really exciting moment for fans of the Clone Wars. I even like, before the show, my wife who loves The Mandalorian but never watched the Clone Wars, we went online and I made her look at some videos to get her brought up to speed on who Ahsoka is, and then I made her watch the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars, which came out this year, which was also just phenomenal and just an amazing way to wrap up the show. So yeah, it was exciting for all of us Clone Wars fans.
IG, let's talk about the casting. She wanted it. She asked for it. She got it. She booked it. How often have we seen that happen where an actor or actress advocates for a role and they actually get it? And do you believe that she delivered?
Well, you don't see it happen all that often. In Star Wars, it's happened just one other time that I can remember, and that's with Samuel L. Jackson wanting to play in Star Wars. He wanted to be in the movie so bad, and he wanted a lightsaber that he got a color that nobody else got so he could find himself on the screen. He was able, just from his pure charisma, to talk George Lucas into letting him be in the movie, let him have a different lightsaber, that they wrote amazing stories about all of those things into the novels for the prequel. I know there's been a lot of people that have gotten their way into some things, but you can't see them. You can't, like Simon Pegg being in the sequels, Daniel Craig being a stormtrooper. Like, you can tuck yourself in when nobody knows who you are. Then you get to say, that's me, but you still can't tell. But getting a front-facing central character like this, that's just absolutely amazing. And the fact that she sold it so hard and then showed up and delivered as well as she did, because I bought it. Like, the way she moved, the way she was carrying herself through, the way she spoke, all seemed like Ahsoka. Like initially I saw it and I'm like, oh, Rosario Dawson, she looks good as Ahsoka. And the further I got into the episode, it was not Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. It was Ahsoka. It speaks volumes of her. She did an amazing job with the role, and I hope we get a lot more Ahsoka as the season and the series goes on.
The episode opens on Corvus, dark, desolated, destroyed, dead trees everywhere, ash. So far, The Mandalorian tells a much deeper and darker tale of the Star Wars universe than the good vibes ending that Return of the Jedi had. Ryan, where is this brighter tomorrow that the New Republic promised us when the galaxy came and rose up against the Empire? I mean, do you think that maybe a good deal of the galaxy was better off under Empire rule?
It's a tough question to answer, only because, you know, we're only seeing the parts of the galaxy that they want us to see. So I think to an extent, like when you look at like, okay, what happened after with the New Republic, it only ended up with the First Order, and you know, they barely escaped that. So, you know, maybe it was better under Empire rule. It's hard to tell because we don't know what the larger galaxy is. We know that the Mandalorian, who's a bounty hunter, you know, tends to find himself in the uglier parts of the galaxy, but you know, it's hard to say like what things are larger, but also we're also in a transition period. So it's that point to some extent, chaos and lawlessness and trying to build up a new government. And we have a hard enough time in our, you know, world, you know, building back new countries. Imagine what it's like building, you know, rebuilding a galaxy after you've taken down an empire. So it's a little tough, but we definitely, I guess you don't have a story if everything is nice and perfect and going well. Yeah. I feel like that we're just in that transition period right now.
Well, and I agree with you because we're dealing with the parts of the underworld where he's kind of hiding and surviving, and these criminals are hiding out, and they were probably barely a decent place when the Empire was around. Now there is no laws, so, you know, that's what happens. One gang leaves and a bigger and badder gang comes in. The magistrate and her cronies have the town on lockdown. They send for Mando and ask him to kill this pesky Jedi that's plaguing their town. But did we see some serious character development in Djarin as he played it cool about not only answering the question of whether he's part of the guild or not, but even whether he'd go far enough to go hunt the Jedi? Like, he didn't quite take the contract. He more kind of pumped her for information and walked out.
Well, he kind of took the contract. He kind of just said, yeah, all right, you know, what's the payment? What's the mark? You know, what information can you give me? But it was all a little bit more nefarious. He wasn't being as upfront with them as he was with everyone else. He didn't really lie, though, at any point.
But he most of the time, his answers are very black and white. It's yes or no. And in this episode, on 2 different occasions, we saw him go, maybe.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that it's kind of nice that he's not really thinking like a bounty hunter anymore. He's really thinking like a protector. He's there to do his quest as given to him by the armorer. He's out to try and make sure that he safely returns the child to where it needs to go. And I love that he's doing it, and that he's using his guile and his awareness of what his previous status gives him. And that's what I see in it. And like, maybe it's a little backhanded, maybe it's a little goofy, but I think that it works. I think that it's interesting that he's like, yep, I'm a member of the guild. Last I checked, you know, you can call Grief Karga back home and he'll tell you that I belong here, or everything else that he does. I like that it's showing more arc to the character, kind of like Han Solo with the smuggler thing and everything, and like he was kind of a scoundrel and a bad guy and everything, kind of skirting the law, doing the wrong thing. But when given the right opportunity, it shows the true colors and just kind of comes around and is doing the right thing when the right thing should be done.
On several occasions in the first season and a little bit in the second, his inability to just go along with things got him in trouble. Against my creed, nope. Against my moral code, not doing it, sorry. And then problems would follow. In this situation, it actually behooved him to just kind of, all right, yeah, whatever you need, and straddle the gray line to get him where he needed to go. If they found out he wasn't in the guild, chances are he wouldn't have been let in the town. And if he didn't agree, like, oh, okay, well, where is the Jedi? They wouldn't have pointed in the direction. Although I think Ahsoka would have found him one way or the other. Ryan, the hunter sets out for his prey, but doesn't have to wander long before he's straight out attacked by a Jedi. Ahsoka goes on the offensive. Did you find that to be very un-Jedi? And is this the first time on the show that we're learning that Beskar appears to be 100% lightsaber resistant?
They built her character up within the episode to do that, because that opening sequence, which I love, was almost like she was like a horror villain, like just the way that she was sneaking up on the soldiers and just murdering them. So I think it establishes early on, like, whatever she wants or needs, she will stop at nothing to get it. And then she gives them 24 hours, and she, even to the point where she almost is like, look, if you can torture and murder all the citizens, I'm coming after you. You have 24 hours. Like she, or one day, like she means business. So by setting it up early, in that first scene, it establishes that, she's going all out. And so all she knows is here's a bounty hunter in, Beskar armor coming for her. So I can, if she's willing to do what she did early, no reason why she's not willing to viciously attack him. So in that way, like, they did a good job of setting it up. So it was believable, but it was ferocious. Like, and yeah, I think it is the first time that we learned that Beskar is legitimately like lightsaber proof. I can't think of another situation where we had it kind of put to the test like that, but it was kind of cool to watch that. And he's really lucky he had that Beskar armor.
And reminder, in the Clone Wars at the very end, especially this last season, Ahsoka has left the Jedi Order. So she is Force sensitive. She has been trained by Jedi, but she is no Jedi.
Well, IG, the battle was fierce. It was epic, but it was also very fast. Could we have used a little bit more of that duel between the Jedi versus the bounty hunter? And where do you think it ranks as far as other confrontations we've seen?
Maybe a little bit more, but I think the way it ended and the way it got to its completion, we saw enough things that they were both very formidable opponents, but he wasn't there to fight her. Who else is he going to run into? Like, he's heard about what Jedi are now. He's heard, obviously, some stories about what he's looking for. So if he continues to fight, maybe she gets hurt. Maybe she really doesn't want to help him with what he needs help with. So I think it in the grand scheme of things, it works pretty well to end it that quickly and have him call her by name and say, I want to talk to you.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way that scene played out, because initially the kind of cynical part of me was like, oh no, here's another situation where you have two heroes who are gonna have to fight each other for a minute, and then they're gonna realize they're on the same side. So I'm kind of glad it was a cool little sequence where she viciously attacks him. He ties her up, and she does that cool little thing where she jumps over the branch, and so, like, I thought, you know what, that worked great. And then they end it, and so I think it was perfect amount of time so that we didn't get this long drawn out battle between them, because I really honestly I didn't really care to see that between them.
If you're an old school comic book fan like I am, that's basically how they introduce every single hero team up, is that they fight for about 30 seconds after they meet each other, kind of get an idea of what their moxie is, and then they make friends and then go after the bad guy. Could it have been slightly longer? Maybe, but I mean, I enjoyed the fight between Djarin and Kara when they first met, and that was also very brief. I don't think they're going to do a lot of that, and with the shorter runtime, we don't have a lot of time for all that. It pushed the story along, it was fun, and it made you think, well, I can't wait to see him go against other Jedi in the future. I saw you post about this today, Ryan. Not Baby Yoda, not the child, but Grogu. We finally have a name for this adorable little creature that has come and invaded everybody's hearts. But of course, the internet was displeased. Your advice, sir, how do they get over this?
Honestly, that's a position where I think writers were not going to win, because if the name was too cutesy, people would have said it's too cutesy. If it was too boring, they would have said it's too boring. So I find, like, the name fits. I'm kind of perfectly happy with the name. What I loved was, like, whenever they said his name, the cute way he kind of perked his ears and looked up, like I that worked for me. So yeah, it's like, do I love the name? No, I'm sure, maybe there could have been something better, but I think that the fandom, as the fandom is, would have gotten angry about anything. And yeah, like as I posted, like, I don't care what they call him, he's always going to be Baby Yoda to me. I'm perfectly happy with the name. And look, if you hate it, like, it's Star Wars, deal with it.
Just call him Baby Yoda.
Maybe they should have named him Yondu or something. They could have just completely linked into Guardians of the Galaxy that way and named him Yondu. That way you get the Y name.
Yeah.
You get something else going on. Because, like, the only other two that we've seen have been Yoda and Yaddle. What's this Y thing with that race? They just love the letter Y. They're going to get some name. And somebody's going to hate it. And they're going to be loud and vocal about it. But does it really matter in the end? Like, all right, the Mandalorian's name is Din Djarin. How many people, even in the show, have called him Din Djarin at all? Like, nobody. And that's fine. So if you want to call him Baby Yoda, everybody knows what you mean. We're good to go. But his name is Grogu. Is it the greatest name ever? Probably not. But, neither is Cinik, for that matter.
Thanks.
Really.
I was just thinking too. I mean, if you don't like the name, don't use the name. Call the child, call Baby Yoda. My stepdad didn't like me. He called me little bastard most of the time. So, I mean, hell, you don't need to use the God-given name. IG, you're a big softie like I am. Were you like me, and did you get a case of the feels when Ahsoka brought up Anakin's downfall because of his attachment to Padme?
Yeah, that hit me right in the feels because a lot of that also led to Ahsoka being where she is now. A lot of that led to her watching the rise of Darth Vader, her having to basically hide herself because even though she had left the Jedi Order, she was still known to be a Jedi. So she had to hide during Order 66. And she knew that Anakin had turned and that he had done some pretty awful shit. So that being said, yeah, that hit me real hard because she's like, well, he's attached to you and attachments are bad. And he's got fear and fear is bad. And I've seen what very powerful beings, what can happen to them when they're trained properly in the Force. So I'm not going to train him. That's not my job. I'm not taking that one for the team.
Our heroes agree to work together to save the town and uproot the baddies. They go in, they clear out the trash quickly, but it comes down to two epic one-on-one showdowns, Ahsoka versus Morgan and Mando versus Lang. Ryan, did you notice the different flavors of confrontations there? One being very samurai-driven and the other outside the gates being very gunslinger, especially with their endings?
I didn't consider it until you mention it. So yeah, it's actually a really good point that you were kind of very radically different kind of approaches to the confrontations. I enjoyed them. I thought I really liked the lightsaber, Beskar duel. I thought it worked really well. I liked the choreography for that scene. And then, the kind of Mando showdown was also cool in and of itself. Like I liked, that there was no real tension there. You knew that it was just a matter of like, all right, is this guy really trying to save his ass and he's going to run away, or is he going to get shot down? But it was a nice little scene, in itself as well.
Yeah, there wasn't a shot in hell that guy was going to win that confrontation. It just wasn't going to happen for him. But I did like the spear versus lightsaber battle inside the gates. Reminded me a lot of Kill Bill. And outside, I liked Lang, very cowboy-like, trying to talk himself out of the fight. If he got the least bit of opening, he was going to try to take that shot, and he did. You could see it coming from a mile away, and you knew it was just going to end badly from him. Speaking of Lang, IG, did you pick up on the fact that he was John Connor's mom-banging buddy from the first Terminator movie, Kyle Reese? And could they have done a little bit more with a character with that kind of sci-fi background?
When I saw him, I said, that dude is so familiar. Where is he from? And I was just banging my head every time he was on screen. I'm like, where is he from? Where is he from? And then it clicked. I'm like, Terminator, Aliens. Oh my God. Michael Biehn. He's not aged super well, but the chops are still there. I think that part was acted so beautifully, and they could have done more, but I think they did just enough. Kind of made him that gunslinger kind of guy. Like, I'm a hired gun. I'm here to stand here and shoot people who do things that we don't want them to do. But I'm really about the paycheck. And if it looks like the paycheck's going to stop, I don't need to be here. Although he was kind of putting on airs because I think he thought the magistrate was going to get through and was going to win. And yeah, Ahsoka's a little too well trained for that. But yeah, seeing Michael Biehn in that role, that was really cool. I like when they bring in these people that have connections to other things. And sometimes it's connections to comedy. Sometimes it's connections to other sci-fi franchises. And this guy's got connection to 2 sci-fi franchises. I'm into it and I like it. And I'm glad that, they're willing to do those things and it's not the hugest role, but it's a big enough role that he can firmly say now, I'm a part of Star Wars. I'm here. I'm in it.
The information that Ahsoka wanted from the magistrate, Ryan, was the location of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Could we get a live action version of that infamous villain? And do you think he's the one calling the shots for the Empire now?
Yeah, that was a moment where I texted that I would use a pro wrestling reference or jargon, and like I popped for that hugely. Like when that happened, jaw dropped. Thrawn is again one of the more It's crazy that in such a pivotal episode where we got Ahsoka, a character that I think a lot of people wanted, that she also name drops Thrawn, another major character, and maybe where Ahsoka's like the hero that we is the most popular. Thrawn's probably the most popular villain that's not been in a movie. Who knows? Like it would make sense that he's the one calling the shots. And then it would be nice because then they start kind of you have like the Legends version of Thrawn, which were like the first real novels after the original trilogy, and then in this the Disney Star Wars universe has kind of rebooted Thrawn, but it still is, for the most part, when it comes to that character, avoided this kind of period in the New Republic. So it's interesting to see, like, do they go the same route that they went with those original novels, which effectively did have Thrawn kind of as the de facto leader of the Empire. So I'm excited because, it can go a million different ways. Thrawn is a great character. Who knows? It just opens things up. Maybe he's in this show. Maybe he's in another show. I think it's really exciting that they name dropped him and that it was Ahsoka that did that, because that means we're probably going to get more Ahsoka in some show, some way, shape, or form. And it looks like Thrawn is eventually going to show up.
After the battle is over and the good guys have won IG, Ahsoka reneges on her deal with the Mando and points him in the way of the Jedi world of Typhon. They're headed in that direction. Do you believe that they'll get there this season? And who will answer young Grogu's call, if any?
There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of different ways that it could go. I think that they may get there this season. I think that would probably be the last episode this season when they get there. And they'll set him up on top of a rock and he'll levitate some shit. And like maybe we'll get like a quick flop to some other planet and we'll see like a silhouette or a back of somebody. And then we're going to be left to just try and figure out who, or maybe they're going to bring silhouettes of a bunch of different planets and a bunch of different people, some possibly good, some possibly bad. Because I think if you send out some huge force beacon, it's not just going to be good guys that are going to like pay attention to it. It could be any number of things, which leads into even more peril for the kid. I think we're going to get there. I think that we're going to have some more filler type things happen between now and the end. So I don't think they're going straight there. I don't think that's how it's going to work, because there's just too much stuff that'll happen once they get there to speed right to it. Because if anything on internet streaming is doing well right now, this is probably top of the heap. And the only thing they could do to make it better for us Star Wars fans is make every episode 7.5 hours long. The fact that they're between 30 minutes and an hour and more toward 30 minutes than they are an hour means that they've got to spend some time, because I know they've already, I believe, renewed up to season 4. Like they're planning on at least 4 seasons, which means they've got 2 more seasons to go. If they go next episode, they're on Tython calling out other Jedi or Force sensitive people, that's going to end up with a real problem for them very quickly.
Ryan, Ahsoka appears to be a one-off for the season. Do you think we'll see her on the show again? And your thoughts on the episode and your rating?
We've still got 3 episodes. And so there's a part of me that thinks maybe kind of like last season, as we get towards the finale, maybe we get Bo-Katan and Ahsoka back. But it does seem like it's a one-off. I'm sure we'll see more Ahsoka in the, Disney TV or streaming, Star Wars universe. It's just a matter of like, will we, when and in what, what context will it be in this show? Will it be her own show? Will it be like a Rebels, reboot or Rebels live action show? So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I am, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to see, what happens. My thought is they will get to Tython in episode 8. And there'll be the big battle between Gus, aka Moff Gideon. They'll be saved by the Jedi, whoever the Jedi is that will come to help them. I love the episode. It's one of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite episode of the show. I thought, I can't say enough about Rosario Dawson's take on Ahsoka. I thought it was, perfect. She looks the part. The physicality is there. The acting is there. Like, as we were talking about between her and Ashley Eckstein, I think that the difference is with the live action experience and just the gravitas that she has. I think it just works. And I think she's the perfect choice for that character. I love the choreography in this episode, from that first scene of her kind of hunting down the soldiers to the quick fight between her and Mando, the showdown at the end. I thought the choreography was really great. I love the set and just the music was on point for this episode. I love the world building again, bringing up Thrawn, sending them on a quest, which effectively is to find another Jedi, and then the questions that come up, like, you know, who's the new Jedi? I thought there's just a lot of great stuff. I love even the Baby Yoda Grogu backstory. That was another huge thing. Like, it adds a lot of pathos to the character. It's like all of a sudden it's not just this, like, you know, this 50-year-old infant. It's like, wow, he had life experience. Like, he was being trained as a Jedi, is whisked away, and then just his life goes dark and he becomes this infantile thing that, you know, we have, or that we see. It's like, it's really sad. So I think again, this episode does a great job of really building the world and telling a lot of story with very little. So yeah, I loved it. One of my favorite episodes. Again, if not my favorite episode, I give it a 9.5.
I'm right there with Ryan. 9.5 for me. This is a great episode. There's so much with the lightsaber duel. Even though it was a one-sided lightsaber, it was just really good choreography. The cinematography and the shots that they set up in this, like when she was sitting talking to Grogu in front of the moon, it was just absolutely beautiful. And still, we have yet to have the child speak even one coherent word. So we don't know if he's going to talk like Yoda or talk like a normal person yet. I'm sure we'll get something at some point. But everything just leads into how intricate the Star Wars universe is. And we're getting so many different pieces from different places. Now, I do fear that maybe they're going to try and pull too much from other places and tie it too tightly into the other places in Star Wars. And I think using things like Ahsoka and Thrawn, because they weren't so tightly woven into the actual cinematic movies, are good choices. I'm hoping they don't tie so tightly into like Clone Wars stuff and other things that it makes them so dependent to keep the story moving, because I think they've done a great job of having a coherent story with just snippets of things. I still think that Ahsoka was a great choice, especially because she was a main character on Clone Wars and Rebels, but she was a main character kind of like Chewbacca's a main character, like important, but not the most important. So she's here, she's important, but it's still the Mandalorian and the child. I think they've got a long ways to go, and I hope they don't like hurry up to get there. I think that as much as I hate to say it, I'd like to see some of the stuff wait until the next season, because I just don't want to feel rushed through this ride, because the ride is always going at 100 miles an hour, and I don't need them to get up to 150. So I do enjoy it. We're at 9.5 for me.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a slow burn in this universe. Everything is at laser beam pace. The episode The Jedi, for me, kicked open so many Star Wars universe doors. We found out the child's name, his backstory. We found out the Typhon still might be a hotbed of Jedi activity. Ahsoka spoke the name that all diehard Star Wars fans wanted to hear, Grand Admiral Thrawn. And I hope that we get a chance to further discuss him on the show, because he's of epic importance in the Star Wars universe, because he was the main villain in the trilogy we should have got that we didn't. This episode was a great introduction to one of the most beloved characters to never appear in a movie. It worked across the board. Rosario Dawson straight brought it every time she was on the screen, and I definitely hope they bring her back. Although I did feel that her swordsmanship was a slight tick slow and not as good as, say, Ewan McGregor's or Hayden Christensen's. It looked a little clumsy at times, probably because she didn't have weeks to get ready for the part. 99% of the time, she looked great. I could care less about the child's name at the end of the day. It doesn't make me love it any less. His backstory is what's important. We have 3 more episodes left. I can't wait to see where this goes. Like, Friday is become the day for me. I wake up and the first thing I do is turn the show on, and I haven't felt like that for a program in a long time. I give this episode, The Jedi, a 9.5.
And that's it. You made it to the end of another episode of the Cinik Radio podcast. I'm Igrihe, here with Cinik, who you can find at CINIKRADIO.com. Also, we had Ryan, who you can find at thejimwits.com. We'll be back next week with some new stuff for you, probably some news as well. Send your crazy news stories, any comments, questions, and concerns to us at CINIKRADIO@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Look for us on Facebook at Facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. Find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. And find us on Instagram at CINIKRADIO. You can also head over to tpublic.com, search for Cinik, CINIK, and get your own Cinik Radio podcast gear. T-shirts, mugs, cups, stickers, all the cool Cinik Radio podcast stuff you could possibly want. It'd help the show, and we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for all the love and support. Keep listening, sharing it with your friends, like, listen, and subscribe. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at CINIKRADIO.com. Available for download on iTunes.